Hello, welcome to Fear Porn Propaganda. I'm Wisecraft, and today I'm with.
Anon 2150.
So, what do you want to talk about today? I believe our discussion was essentially on going to be on the simulation, like a Matrix simulation, and we just recently got to try the Oculus VR machine, and we're kind of correlating what we experienced in the Oculus versus reality. And what I've noticed is that it's just an advanced version. Like my reality that I see currently seems to be more of an advanced version of what I experienced as the Oculus. What do you think?
Well, I can kind of see where you're going with that a little bit. It's like your mind basically creates its own simulation of the universe. It just happens to be very good at doing what it does. The brain is a very highly ordered mechanism in our bodies, and it allows for the transference of our thoughts and emotions in intricate ways and um, functions on so many levels um, that it's probably the most advanced organism that we know of in existence is a mind that will be conscious of itself. Otherwise, we've got like particle matter and um, astral waves,
Sure. Okay.
which test the boundaries of the universe.
Right.
And though that would theoretically be, if you could see beyond that, you might be able to guess some of the variances that suggest otherwise. Perhaps it wasn't a reality.
True. Did you get to see that thing on the link I sent you the on conversation? I mean, a conversation about it was like real people, high tech people that were working on these um, things like robotics and stuff, and AI, different forms of AI,
Mm-hmm.
and they were having a discussion on whether or not relationships can be formed
With like
with
machines.
yeah, with a machine, like how you can form a relationship um, like you would with a human, but with a machine, and that these things are leading that direction, and this is towards the transhumanism agenda.
Yeah, it's part of integrating human interaction with technology into such a way that it's the norm that everybody has like a robot or can get a prosthetic arm or who knows what the potentials are. I mean, it's a very sci-fi sort of reality that we're probably wilder than anyone can imagine
Yeah,
with
exactly.
technology.
And what I found is listening to that discussion, they really explained that from the experimentation world of sex with the technological world, they actually are more advanced. They get that comes from there. The advanced like process of robotics and processes and working through that comes from that like kind of pushing the boundaries issue, and
Right.
then from there the scientists pick it up and then they go, hey, let's
Yeah.
let's actually incorporate this into some sort of medical advancement or something like that.
There are advancements and uses of this technology that are profound for humanity. I mean, think if I could make Stephen Hawking walk again, and enjoy what it feels like to run in a field or something, I really want that for that person. People who have diseases that are totally debilitating, or maybe they break their bones, and we've developed some sort of highly advanced um, growth mechanism inside the body using nanites and what we know about manipulating molecules and producing synthetic life, reconstructing a hip or some sort of thing like that, some far advances like that being possible.
Yeah, exactly. And like one of the people brought up that kind of we're kind of cyborgs already in the way that we extend all of our tech with our use, in the way that we use our phone to extend our mind, to learn learn something. We ask Google, and then Google tells us, and then all of a sudden now we know it.
Yeah, and that's why we relate it to virtual reality because that's obviously a tech that is going to be more prominent in our lives. And we can talk about the different kinds of technology that they're developing in this area.
Yeah, there's AR and there's VR.
The augmented reality and virtual reality, and and ideally this would be something you could put in your pocket, and it could be both augmented reality and virtual reality, if it would be, and it would be a one in all in one device. Your phone, the internet, um, something like that, and it might seem really fanciful to us, and the question might be, who would really want this stuff? I mean, certain people are going to be in it. They're going to find themselves a niche market. That's for sure. And
Right.
it could explode with the potential of like cell phones being something that you. Okay.
That's true. And and part of the discussion, which was interesting to me, was how they were relating
Going
the
there
idea of
anytime.
Her, that movie Her, where the person would like use the phone thing as like an actual communication like companion. And one of the people that that's actually working on this research is actually creating something called bots, which is a fully automated person essentially that you design with your phone. Like kind of like she said it was like signing up for a profile type of thing,
Yeah.
but instead like a dating profile,
Yeah.
but instead of like matching up with some other person out there, you're matching up with a robot that is
Yeah.
created for that persona that you are creating.
Yeah, there was that movie.
No, I'm talking about real life.
No, I'm
The
talking about
bod
real life
thing
too.
is real life. The Her is the fake is what they were kind of associating the idea of, are you going to be able to have that kind of relationship with a machine?
Yeah, and I think that's really prevalent because it's something that's on the horizon. There's somebody working on that right now, or some form of it, because what you're talking about is more of like a machine learning algorithm, and it can, if you tap into the AI potential in that, with quantum computing and things like that, you could be totally convinced that you were talking to another human being.
Yeah, but I'm not
Like,
talking about a chatbot. I'm talking about a physical being that's in front of you communicating with you that looks like a human.
mhm,
And you actually design that person.
yeah, there are gonna be people who want that.
Yeah,
It's not.
and it's not just people. Apparently, they're talking about like people have weirder versions of what they want in these forms. So you may want like several arms or something like that.
Wow, dude.
It's just very, you could
Think
create
of it
your
as a
own thing,
think of
like
this.
companion. It's very strange.
The whole companion aspect sort of draws us away from humanity and from each other. So we're more individualistic, and in a sense, if people lost themselves in this technology and separated themselves from the natural world because they were able to design another human being who was perfect for them and knew them so well and they could spend the rest of their lives with them, soon you'd start seeing people walking around with them on the street.
Right.
And eventually, the technology would get so great that you wouldn't really tell the difference. And the result of that would be a decrease in human procreation.
Well, that's where you get the yeah, and that's where you get the Turing test connection. Like the Turing test originally apparently was just a theory, but
Right?
but once computers were actually able to go into that level, it becomes more of a reality. And I've actually I've experienced the Turing test from a machine, like one of those artificial intelligences that you talk to or whatever, and you talk back like a chatbot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it confuses you or convinces you to that level that you're actually talking to a person, that you just think it's a hacker at that point.
Some like alien tier posing as a bot, but it's actually a person, and they're
Right.
just fucking with you.
Yeah, exactly. I did actually think that at some point.
Yeah.
But then I got beyond that and realized, if I did some research on the program, I realized there's no possibility that that could happen. They have extreme firewalls for that specific situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the research showed. That those people that created those bots or whatever. They
They
have,
have to make sure they keep
yeah,
people out.
exactly, exactly. They have, it's like separated from, and those things have the access to the internet, but they aren't in the internet. They don't like revolve around in the internet or whatever. Although there is things called bots that do. Spider bots. They search for things.
Mm.
So getting back to the VR aspect, when you experienced the Oculus, what was your first experience? Your take on reality? That reality, if you
Well, I've only experienced it one time,
will.
and it was pretty incredible. Um, One of my first thoughts was like, um, okay, where are my hands? Like where's the guy that was sitting next to me? I almost wanted to reach out and like
Yeah,
make sure he was still
I
there.
had the same
It's
effect.
like, where'd you go, bro?
You have almost like almost ghostly effect. Keep talking. I'll go check, see what the hell this is.
All right. Well, virtual reality. Um, Virtual reality challenges our perception of reality, and in some ways can enforce human behavioral patterns that um, enforce the denial of reality. Well, that's not going to make sense. Potentially addictive behavior. Mhm. Well, I guess I was trying to say that it can also virtual reality can distract and enforce reality.
All right. Anyway, sorry about that, folks.
Well, it's just you and me.
Well, yeah, but in the future there'll be people like listening
Somebody
to it.
might watch this.
Yeah, exactly.
And be like, that part in the middle really sucked.
What were you talking about?
I don't know what the fuck I was talking about.
All
Trying
right.
to talk about like how virtual reality can challenge our perception of reality and enforce certain negative behaviors in human beings, like the denial of reality, and how that can, you know,
Right.
deteriorate our natural perception of
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense to me. What I was trying
it
to
didn't earlier, I promise.
what I was trying to get to was how when you're in the Oculus, you can't tell the difference between reality and, I mean, other than you knowing that, like you're there, but you're it's so uh, some of it's so realistic, depending on which program you get when you play it. Like they've gotten very advanced, and the advancement has become so realistic. When you have the Oculus on and you're in the Oculus machine, VR or whatever, that environment, you look somewhere with your face and you move it close. You actually physically look like you're getting closer and further away from that object
Yeah,
from your eyes.
there's going to be a time where, like,
Dimension is basically there.
there soon will be a time where you'll be hard pressed to find someone who hasn't tried virtual reality. I think that's the goal of the marketing scheme.
Yeah, and there's also the S7, or I mean the Galaxy S7,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to which implements the that kind of software into kind of a mainstream following,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the Oculus itself has been a kind of underground following for a while.
Again.
So I only found that out about that because of a previous roommate that had the Oculus, and it was a beta test. So after doing that and then coming back into this world, if you will, now I'm seeing this world as like an advanced version of that, and I can't differentiate the separation because it just seems like this the more advancement aspect. But it's very interesting to consider the possibility that if we're in a simulation, that simulation is very detailed to the T. Like they're like whereas in the Oculus, there's still glitches. You can go to a wall and you can stick your head through the wall and you can look on the other side of the wall.
Yeah.
You can't do that in reality.
Well, you know that you remember there's this movie.
Hey, we got a viewer. Welcome.
Hey, what's up? Um, remember the movie that had Fantasia in it? Never Ending
Yes,
Story.
yes,
Well, in Fantasia had no boundaries,
right.
and
Except for
then
the nothing.
the nothing was like a precipice. It was like an existential abyss, if you will. And I find that a very interesting concept because in Fantasia, you like you, Atreyu was trying to test the limits,
Right.
but he found out he couldn't. He just found nothing was there.
Yeah, and
Uh,
then nothing ended up kind of consuming everything in the end, which was really about imagination ending, like you getting over your imagination, growing up. Essentially, is the allegory. You're growing up, so then your imagination goes away. You're being schooled out of that through the education process, through the conditioning, and then, yeah. So then, so then you end up, so then you end up becoming like more of a, uh, like like a normie, like a person that's living in today's society, living the American dream, that kind of scenario.
okay.
And in doing so, you lose your imagination, and you expect the world around you to fulfill your imagination itself. Like that's why movies are performed essentially, like for entertainment, right? That entertainment becomes to to fill in our imagination that we lost as children,
Yeah.
and the Never-Ending Story kind of shows that.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at like, ask yourself how a scientist would approach to this problem. They would want to test the limits of it, right? And I think there's something called astral waves. That's something that sounds similar to that. And apparently they're like the most, they're just highly charged particles. They're so powerful, like we can't even recreate them in our CERN laboratory thing. What's it called? Hadron Collider.
Yeah,
Um,
hadron collider,
yeah.
large hadron collider, LHC.
So essentially, there are those, and if you test the limits of I don't know astral, um, our vision. What do they call it? Like the red plane. I
What are you talking about?
I'm just talking about like the furthest distance that we can see in
Field,
space.
the field. The science people call that the field, and they say that you could take from it. Like it's like as if we're inside of a hologram, holographic image. The outer lens of it is the outer reaches of space, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and so that would be considered the field, the science people.
Well, it seems to be that we oh, fuck, I lost it.
Seems to be that we. That's what you said. So I don't know. I'll just like go on, and then you'll probably remember what the hell. The the field is interesting because the idea behind it is that we actually create from it. Like everything is there, and we actually grab it and bring it into our existence. So that would go along with the idea of the simulation. I mean, you can correlate both ideas together, and instead of having them kind of bombard each other,
Mm-hmm.
like religion, that bombards. You see, but there's ways to make it fit. People have tried.
Yeah. Well, I think that there are certain things that enforce our denial of reality. Like some people like the thought of being secure in a society, and so they deny that their governments are corrupt or that they're being oppressed in some way or taken advantage of. Um, and different parts of the world there are very like different balances of this sort of wealth and resource um, consumption.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, we have a biological response, or not biological, it's like a behavioral response, but it's evolved in humans. Um, and it's sort of like like almost like a psychological um,
Psychological.
like an obsession of your mind. And it's like our minds are really good at recreating or creating a simulation of the world around us, but that doesn't seem to negate the human tendency to deny reality.
Well, I'm not so sure that I'm inside of, like, I have an like, I actually, if you were going to take it from the outside perspective, do I am I actually physically like wearing something and it's in front of me, and you know what I mean? Is it like that and I just can't sense it? You know what I'm saying? Or is it like I'm like dreaming. I'm inside my own mind, that kind of thing, and creating the reality around me using memories, past memories, things like that. Or it's a joint mind thing, like where I'm with other people and we're all co-creating using our minds, and we're just agreeing to say that these things are here and those things are there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if you think of one of those 24/7 games, those MOM, like WoW, you know, like or the GTA, you know, like those kind of 24/7 games, everybody agrees that those things are in the same place, that they are, in order for them to be there. And
Well,
they're all there.
mm-hmm.
And when they put something down, or they do something, or they destroy a building or something like that, when they come back, when someone else comes back to it, that building's gone. You know what I mean? It's not like it gets recreated for those people. That's how reality works.
I know reality. I think religion is a good example of how people tend to go overboard with their denial of reality, and that somehow, if you believe in a God who's testing you and trying to make sure you're worthy to be in heaven, that this is a testing ground or another place. A heaven would be like beyond what we experience here.
Or it could
So
be a
this is
representation of
essentially a simulation.
technology.
This is a simulation or a testing ground uh, where we prove our worthiness
Yeah,
or
but
not.
what if heaven is a technology?
Well, the concept of heaven is very interesting because it sort of suggests like what would a heaven be? That would be a place where there was like total abundance and like pure thought and freedom in every form and way with your consciousness, and you could explore new and interesting things that would never end. And you could just go about your life like that. And that would be your experience until eventually you explored all the corners of the universe and fall back into it.
You plug that in. It apparently not. Okay. Oh, never mind.
So anyway, human beings have this ingrained psychological like attachment to ideologies that enforce that sort of delusion about
Mm-hmm.
themselves. And there are negative aspects, of course, but that somehow seems to be an advantage as well. Otherwise, it wouldn't perform so well. Like this, this tendency to not like see the ends justifying the means.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're just here to experience this and fuck it, I'm not going to hell anyway. I can do whatever I want. Um, uh, plus other temptations as well. But the whole religious paradigm, I think, has been a very calculated and um, not maniacal. I wouldn't say that. I would say that there were good intentions in the creation of religion, essentially. Christianity, for example, helped us come away from human sacrifice religion, where that was very predominant.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, Jesus, who was God's only son, was, which is, if you think about it, that's the highest sacrifice you could possibly make. If you personally had to sacrifice your firstborn in order to get into heaven, that would be fucked up. You'd feel like a dick for the rest of your life. And people were realizing this.
Well,
People were realizing that
I
that's
don't know
not how they
necessarily that
want
emotions
sort of
are in heaven.
evolved out of this
You know what I'm saying? 'Cause
control.
humans, I mean, emotion seems to be a human quality. Like you have to feel like you're gonna die in order to have emotion. Like, for instance, the idea of an immortal doesn't die.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't understand what it's like to die. So therefore they are adverse to the experience. Like almost like they're afraid of it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so therefore they create those situations. Like look at the gods of the what do you call it? Not Egypt, the Greek gods.
mm-hmm.
They seem to mess with the people and play roles of different people and do certain things to push people certain directions and stuff.
Yeah.
In order to experience what it's like to be human.
If you see it as like a process of evolution of a species, of a larger organism, something that's growing in its own complexity, then yes, you can sort of like remove the more personal aspect, the relationships between those people who committed those atrocities against each other. I mean, they would seem like nasty things to us, but to them, it just, I mean, you sacrificed a slave every once in a while. Nobody batted an eye. And you had, but as a result of that, you had these very corrupt systems, in my opinion. Um, the sort of psychology that allows a person to use that as a mechanism of control makes me believe that it allows psychopathic behaviors or encourages like psychopathic behaviors in your leaders.
And sociopathic.
Sociopathic as well. So I think that it may have been an advantage in human evolution, but it is also something that we've come away from. We've grown away from certain grotesque forms of sacrifice, but we have moved on to other brutal ways of sacrifice, and we see that all over the world. So,
examples?
I would say I would classify sacrifice zones as a place where corporate interests reap all of the benefits of a particular landscape, a region of land, and leaves the people with like nothing. They basically reap all of the benefits or rewards. Once the factory is gone, the town dries up, and the people who live there are left to search for scrap metal, eat, and you know, there's no real healthy food in the town, so you go to McDonald's and those types of food places. But people are like scrounging for pennies in the United States right now. I've been one of those people, and it doesn't feel very good.
Right.
You can imagine what it's like in other parts of the world where your sacrifice zone is somewhere in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've been totally betrayed. You were betrayed by your previous leader, and you were betrayed by your liberator.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what the fuck is that?
So it sounds like
That's like,
in retrospect, you're talking about being affected by your environment.
yeah, ways in which show us that the reality we are experiencing has a sort of continuity. and it would be a very profound computer or simulate like it would we would be limited by computational power in a simulated world. However, that doesn't mean that our technologies, like VR, will advance to the point where we would be more and more fooled into believing that what we were experiencing was real, and a sort of total immersion technology.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they'd use different
Ways of doing it.
implants or
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Augmented reality, like contacts. That's a thing that we can like throw out there. We can communicate with this a little later, but basically the idea that contacts create the augmented reality effect.
Oh yeah.
So therefore, you wouldn't be able to see the difference between, because you don't take off your contacts.
I would be surprised if anybody hadn't heard of that already, because like
Well, that already
that
is in the
seems
works. It's just that,
it's so obvious that they're moving toward that.
yeah. But I'm seeing like I think that Oculus is just the kind of dinosaur version of what the contact is going to be.
Yeah.
Like the evolution of the Oculus to the contact is very advanced. And then the idea of the Oculus is you're completely in a whole other place, right? And you move around like you're moving around in reality, but you're over there doing it. So it's like you almost window or like not time dimension window view. It's like you're viewing another dimension through a character,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not really there. Kind of
Yeah.
like that movie that they made in the past. They're gonna make another one, Avatar.
Oh, Avatar. Yeah. I thought about other ways that this sort of augmented reality could be used for scientific advancement.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, aren't they trying? Stephen Hawking and some other scientists just announced that they are going to launch some really tiny materials that are going to fly all the way to Alpha Centauri or something.
Wow.
It's like a solar wave or something like that. Think about advancing technology to where what you've sent out are essentially nanites
Yeah.
on a solar wave, and they can reassemble themselves
Mm-hmm.
wherever they are into shapes and forms that suit the environment. Gather information. Of course, it would take time to get there.
If they were traveling at the speed of light, it wouldn't seem like much time at all from us, from our perspective. But from their perspective, there would be. I mean, no, it'd be longer experience of time for us, but for their perspective, it'd be less, like way less, if they were traveling at the speed of light. So that'd be kind of creepy because like then you'd set if you sent nanites out to space,
Yeah.
like in a direction or whatever, and they're left to their own devices, they can come back like 100 years later as like extremely advanced like material that like destroys us.
No shit, right? We use like AI machine learning algorithms and things like that.
And that's like the Borg, basically. You just described how the Borg could actually be created.
You basically you send this newly created intelligence out into the universe and just like you lob it out there like
You're
it's
just like,
big blob, and it goes and does everything that you would do. Like, learns all this stuff, and then its job is to come back
right.
and share the information if anybody's still left, because of like time differences.
Right, and then you get into the idea of like if there's a gap area because that whole 100 years, what are we doing? What's our advancements?
Yeah.
And then when it comes back, is it like just like do we think it's an alien?
What might happen is like, so humans will have been able to integrate themselves into computers. All right, I wasn't gonna
Transhumanism.
I wasn't gonna get into this too quickly, but you seem to be like
Just going right into it.
So fine. The Terrence McKenna,
Mm-hmm.
he was talking about how human beings will someday project our species, into hyperspace in order to save ourselves.
Interesting, and that makes me think of Global Future 2045, where they're going to create a heaven, a virtual heaven.
Because in one way you're like, all right, I can see the benefits of this. I mean, with virtual technology now, they're suggesting that um, you can go to a reef in Italy or a villa in Italy or something, and not have to use all of the carbon dioxide or carbon emissions to get there. So you have a less of an environmental impact on the future um, through certain like forms of
through
using this
virtual
technology. Yeah,
like tours
yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
Essentially, you could work from home. You have your virtual
The
technology
weirdest thing
thing.
for me was like going inside that
Go for a walk
that
in Central Park if you
Van
wanted
Gogh
to.
painting. That was a trip.
Would be, but if you ask me, like, okay, that would be very interesting, but you'd have a lot of people sacrificing their real lives
That's the problem, I think,
to
in a sense.
descend into this
Or does
paralysis
it
of
become a
delusion.
choice? Does it become a choice, or is it a rich aspect, like a rich versus poor? Like, are you going to have all the rich people going to heaven, and then the poor just left behind?
Well, then the ultimate option would be they could market this to people. They could be like, all right, now you've lived your life and you've become this worthless blob and you're dying. How would you like to plug yourself in completely?
Right.
Just
So then they
insert your
destroy our world
consciousness
around
into
us. So then we go into that other one.
maybe they take your brain or give you a new body.
Well, the 2045 agenda is
That's
all about moving your brain into a robot and then the robot into a virtual world. So
So
look it up,
crazy.
people. It's very crazy.
I'm not thinking about the evolution of humanity, and I'm going, all right, well, this is going to pose some challenges.
You did watch that thing I sent you, right?
I did.
I found it fascinating. What did you like take from it? Like, we didn't really talk about.
Um,
How long before you head out?
How long till I can come in here and watch TV?
Yeah,
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Yeah. So, what is your take on that talk I sent
It was okay. I sort of fell asleep. Here, should we put a link for people?
you? Or I could just say it. Yeah.
We should put up a link or something.
Okay.
I did fall asleep. But it's because I was on the bus.
Right.
It's not my fault. It was the bus's.
I watched it like through in segments, so that's all right.
I tried to go back and listen to some of it, but
I thought it was really interesting.
Not that
There
our
were certain
topics.
spots that were just like what, and they were showing some stuff too, like some sort of woman that it had to do with like almost like the idea of a psychiatrist that's a robot. Like like you're talking to a psychiatrist, but it's actually an automated thing, and it responds to you. Yeah. So I thought that was a really interesting take on it. Okay, so here's the link out there. It's HTTPS colon slash slash YouTube. Or no, I'm sorry. It's U2 YOUTU.BE
Yeah, I don't think anybody.
/ STC6 capital R 3J capital L FC. Anyway, so it was very interesting to see that they're actually creating something like that, and that they're pushing that agenda. It definitely seemed like they were going towards that global future agenda without saying it in a lot of ways. Like it was like it's in the research, it's in the discussion in a sense, but they don't literally say a global future, blah blah blah. You know, oh, we're gonna go heaven. You know what I mean? They just kind of set it up, and it's not really about interaction with a machine versus the use. The idea of having a personal companion as a machine becomes less of a technology and more of an actual friend or lover.
Mhm.
And
Well,
she
yeah.
actually used a term called robosexual, which is apparently a thing that people are using for their um, having sex with robots process, but the technology's not there yet, so they're kind of crude.
Think about okay. Think about the kind of person who would want to put their consciousness into a robot body,
Yeah.
and like they would have a sexual drive, would they? They're like they're attracted to being a robot in a way. Like they want to be a robot so that they can experience what it's like to have sex when they're a robot.
No, I think
And it,
the robot transition is more about um, making yourself more superhuman, like extending situations that you never had before, making you have abilities you didn't have, like enhancing you. Like that's what it seems like to me. Like they seem to want to use it for enhancement.
so like the bio medical type of technology, the more advanced stuff. Theoretically, you could have like nanites that went injected into your brain, and they could repair neurons and slow degeneration, gene therapy, um, and essentially just like repair you on a molecular level.
Right.
You could theoretically develop a technology that were like that, and then, barring some accident, you lived forever. Now, imagine for yourself that species have evolved like us in the universe, and that they've been faced with this dilemma. Maybe they're a couple of 100 years ahead or more, and they can live forever if they want to.
Okay.
That would be crazy,
Like I said,
and
I
that
think
that
there's
could
going
be
to be a
us.
choice. Or it's going to be kind of like how they do with medical insurance. You know what I mean? And maybe in your insurance plan.
What if you could put your consciousness into one of those like solar wave nanite reconstructing things? Like if there was some way that you could break apart a quantum computer with your artificial intelligence signature.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Like your soul, in a sense.
yes, your soul. Somehow they mastered the science, and it can transport
Well,
your
look at
very
Chappie.
soul.
Chappie shows that you
Yes,
know they they played it out like in Chappie.
yeah. Whether that's an actual possibility or not, I cannot say.
It
But
depends. If we are programs, then it would be a possibility.
that leads me like to the philosophical question, um, the ship of Theseus, I believe, and the way that the story goes is if you took an old ship into harbor and you replaced every like strip of wood on the boat, um, with a new piece, and you did it one by one, and then you recreated the other one like next to it,
Hmm.
which one would still be the real ship of Theseus?
Good point. Like because it would be a mix.
Yeah. So you may not seems like a weird place to go with it, but essentially, what I'm saying is, if you were able to deconstruct consciousness on a finite scale, like you somehow could record the firings of your consciousness and create a perfect bridge to a new set of neurons and like, your brain structure essentially, and live an extended period of time.
It seems like that would take a lot of well,
It seems like that's where they want this technology to go.
but that seems like expensive.
Yeah, we might actually destroy ourselves before we get there because we're on a freight train.
Well, okay, let's go back into the idea of it being simulated. Okay, if we are in a
Okay.
simulating
Okay.
universe, that would mean that
Then
they are simulating, or that it was simulating some other universe.
it was like simulating the rise of its own consciousness, and I mean, I'm sort of joking around here,
Yeah.
but and then it would be a testing ground where the clock was ticking against us, and we had
And
to.
that's our lessons, if you will.
Yeah, this is our run to achieve the highest ideological goal for consciousness to achieve. And it's sort of ingrained in our biology. Maybe it's ingrained in our DNA. Maybe there's a type of consciousness that resides in our DNA that desires to do such a thing, to test its own boundaries and the boundaries of the universe, but on a totally different scale, where it brings in the macro and microcosmic aspects together to where we're viewing from a very finite but broad spectrum of the universe. And so our consciousness is faced with a lot of the dilemmas and challenges that come from it. People sort of attach to comfort in ways like that, and maybe that's another part of biology or part of our DNA, but as an organism, we have developed certain behaviors, and we might actually plunge ourselves into like a delusion, like a paralysis of our fully realizing the potential of this organism.
We'll explain what delusion is.
Consciousness. Well, it's it's like being unable to interpret reality for what it really is.
Exactly.
And although we have these brains that are highly developed and do a very good job of telling us like where the couch is, where the remote, like where we are in the universe, we even have a GPS system in our brain, like that sort of like tells us where we are in the world and where we've moved and different ingrained functions that our brain automatically knows how to produce, like foraging for food, beating your heart, other more complex behaviors. And one of them that has been part of humanity is this ability to deny reality for what it really is and create your own reality. And that's what we've been doing all along. That's what culture has been trying to do. That's what different great civilizations have done. And they've used all different sorts of oppression and self-sacrifice for the quote-unquote greater good. And once the society becomes so complex and become much more easy to consolidate the wealth and the riches between us, ever increasingly elite class of people, then you've got a disproportionate distribution of the power and the access to resources in the land. So, to me, resources that we have on this planet, if they're part of a simulation or not, are of such importance that it really does matter what choices we make in our relation to it. I think that human beings, being like, although we are an invasive species and we're so overpopulated that, yeah, it's crazy, I'll admit. But that doesn't mean that the resources of the planet should not also be somewhat accessible in such a way to people that they can live healthy lives. Now, that seems very simple and plain to say, but it is a desire that people are also attempting to achieve, and it's a sort of balance. I would hope, although the more I look around, the more I see a tendency for people to delude themselves, like with ego, with ideology, with politics, sexuality, their own troubles in nature, how good they are at their job, or how many degrees they've had, or how good they are at speaking on podcasts and things like that. But I guess my personal approach is more philosophical, and
usually it is.
And I tend to take that approach because then I can step back from all of the data and say, okay, what is it really trying to tell me?
Right.
Now, although I interpret my own perception of reality I do think of it as the best I can possibly do.
But it's
Like,
very important. You're not using speculation to determine your opinion.
yeah.
You're using actual data that backs up stuff and source energy, source information,
I'm trying to evolve my own consciousness while I have a chance
and that
now.
so-called forms your opinion.
Yeah. I sort of form opinions and then I don't so much attach to them. I bring up
Yeah, I do
ideas
that too. I understand.
and I try not to make a lot of conclusions because it's hard when everything you're talking about is purely speculative,
Exactly.
even though it's based
You
on
really don't know anything,
events that
or I really don't know anything. I just have data to back up things that I think I do know. That's it.
yeah.
It's not, but I don't really know. It's just the data makes me think I do, and people get stuck into this trap
Mm-hmm.
where they think they know something when they don't really know it, and it's based on data
Right.
that they don't really that they believe. At this point, it becomes like
Yeah.
belief, and you're believing in the data. Never
Right.
People out there never believe in the data. Just look at it. Just
Just step
witness it.
back
Yes,
and watch it move past.
exactly,
And then look for the next bit of information
exactly.
and keep putting it together
Yep. Because
until you're
it's
satisfied.
all a big puzzle in a sense. I wanted to talk about the allegory of cave. Did you come across that at all?
I'm familiar with the allegory of the cave. Yeah.
Right. So
It's another. It just goes to show how far back this concept really
exactly,
goes.
and that's kind of where I'm leading it because it's associated with like Plato's discussion with the gods at the dinner table,
Yeah.
and they're like going off about true love, and basically one of the situations is it says take a step back and think about it like this and gives an allegory, and
Mm-hmm.
this allegory has to do with like I believe it was a Native American slave, but I don't think it was being specific, just a
Mm-hmm.
slave basically in chains looking at a wall, and they're next to other slaves. They're all in chains, like in a row. Everybody's facing a wall. The wall has shadows kind of going back and forth on it. And all they see their whole life from birth to death is this wall. So all they're seeing is the shadows dancing against each other, creating an illusion in front of them. That becomes their reality, and that's what they think is real. The the shadows on the wall. Now, for some reason, I don't remember specifically how it happens, but somehow he gets out of the chains, like his chains break or something, and he's able to turn around and get up and move around out of his specific environment. And he gets up and he finds out that the shadows on the wall are from like a light system in the back, further back. So he goes further back to find out where this light's coming from, and it turns out it's a big fire, like this wall of fire, and behind in front of the fire is a bridge, and there's people walking across the bridge. So the fire on the other side of the bridge is creating an illusion of the
Mm-hmm.
shadows of the people walking by, and that becomes the people that are slaves, their reality, because all they're seeing is the shadows. Now, when the person goes back to the slaves and tries to break them out of their so-called illusion, they it doesn't work because they're so stuck in that physical reality thinking that this is their reality that they can't break free, they can't break their chain.
Mm-hmm.
So in an allegory aspect, if you look at that today, in today's time, our wall is the TV and the shadows is the system that's running behind in the fire
Yeah.
and the bridge.
They're the ones who control the
The
data.
control, the data, exactly, which is the gatekeeping, which formulates what we create the reality. So if we have the ability, this is my understanding, we have the ability to create the realities we want, but we don't have the control. The control comes from within, like within our subconscious realm.
The control you have depends on your access to resources and who's in power.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain on the idea of how a TV or a um, flat screen system that shows you so-called reality, like the news or whatever, media, entertainment, you get so locked into that. We start talking about like, you know, actors and actresses and what they're doing and what they think and how they feel and stuff like that. Like we should care. You know what I mean? That's because of the reality push from the system and how they formulate the conditioning. And Why do we create the reality that they want us to create? It's because we fall into that system of creation. So therefore, they don't really have the ability to control or create. They use us to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Interesting.
So we can, I mean, if enough of us were aware, we can stop that control and create our own reality by not allowing them to condition us further.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know if that's really an actual, physical possibility. It's kind of a dream, a hope, if you will.
Well, if we talk about just how technology is pushing us forward, because it's not stopping, it will continue to evolve, and then we can never take it out of the equation.
Not at this
But
point.
so we're acknowledging that these things are happening, and that we will see them in the near future. Maybe it's a test of God or whatever, but on a practical sense, it can show us a lot of very interesting things about our reality. Maybe in another sort of allegory, it shows us how to step away from what we perceive our, our misconstrued reality in our own way. Maybe it has a potential not only to distract, but also enforce our perspective of reality.
Okay. Well, we should end it then.
Well, I wanted to like talk about.
Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I just I thought we could talk about
I mean, I don't know how much time you have.
a little bit more time, like 10 more minutes.
Okay.
So
I pretty much said all I wanted to say.
oh, right on. I didn't. I thought we can just totally keep going with this conversation.
Yeah, if you feed it.
Talk
But
about.
I pretty much got out what I wanted. So if you got some other stuff, then I could feed off of that. But I don't know. I'm out. I'm out of my what I was gonna talk about today. So your turn.
I just I think it's interesting that we're going to be able to learn different things with this technology as well. It could show us what other dimensions look like, for example.
Okay.
Maybe like we send this machine to Mars and like take a real good look at the landscape and everything and come back with some pictures, and it would be totally virtual and unreal, but people would accept it and people would enjoy that experience and want to have it again.
Are you talking about like an Oculus?
Yeah, like Oculuses do.
There's already an Oculus Mars thing.
Is there an
Yeah.
Oculus Mars? Is it actually Mars photos?
I don't know.
I don't know if it really matters. Do you?
No,
Like, no.
not
It's
really.
just
I mean,
rocks and shit.
because the simulation aspect of when you're in the Oculus, you can't tell.
Well, maybe you could see different.
It looks real when
what?
you're there.
It might actually have some really interesting images for us to. If you could take actual images and it had like a three-dimensional, camera.
Oh, I'm sure you can because some like that flight game, the I think it was Air Drift. That one had a picture of the sky, and
what?
literally the sky didn't move or anything, but it was like far out there, and that was a picture.
Mars is gonna have like mountain ranges, canyons, like old rivers and shit, and it's gonna be like there'll be these really deep crevices and stuff that you could fly drones through with these 3D cameras and then actually know what it feels like in a way, get a sense of what it'd be like to fly through the canyons of Mars.
Well, for me, the interesting thing with the Oculus was everywhere you look was you were there. It's like you look behind you, you look down on the ground, you look above. It's everywhere. It didn't matter where you were looking. You were in that environment. And you don't get that in like a video game. The video game you have to turn, and you're only seeing the screen, right? But the same kind of idea, like with No Man's Sky, for instance, that's like this advanced game that like creates algorithms of universes, and then you go through these universes, travel through the galaxy, and it's all like created like with algorithms. So like, and there's so many of them. There's no way you're gonna actually go through all of them. And it's also a what do you call it, MMO. So you end up like meeting other people maybe or whatever. It's like but they may be on the same planet you end up landing on or whatever. Just weird shit like that.
That's how you can do the VR
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
AR.
VR into that would just be crazy. Like
Yeah.
they don't have that yet,
They're gonna blend
but it's gonna happen.
VR and AR, like I was saying.
Hmm.
Like
But
the
VR
two,
and AR are different right now because just just because of the uh, the idea of what AR is. AR has to do with taking reality as it is and adding
doing
things.
something to it.
Yeah.
Well, and then yeah,
Changing the reality as you see it. So if you wanted to have like, I could foresee a future where we have our contacts and you get to like go online and search for different visuals that you can put in your contacts
you know what?
and then have like wherever in the world, and then they'll just remember that it's there. And maybe you want to augment your actual physical universe itself. Maybe you make it more alien or more like Doctor Who or something like that. You know what I mean? Themes. I'm visually seeing like probably like Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Like now you put on your thing and now you're in the wizardly world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I foresee.
There were like implants like proposed not only like within the scientific community but also in the science fiction community.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is like you get this implant in your eye, and so you can see different realities if you want. You can see old memories. You can project them on the screen. You can bring them out into 3 dimensions. Like all this weird stuff with augmented reality and visual
And virtual reality.
virtual reality. Um, and people are gonna want to do that because
Yeah, they're selling it like a game.
if you have
like,
to have
like game experience.
if you have to put contacts in every time, those are gonna be expensive pieces of technology you have to throw away after like a year.
No,
or
they're
something.
probably gonna be like contacts like you get at the eye doctor.
Right, but how long did those last?
They last a year.
They last a year. Okay, so
They're
how much
yearly.
do you
I
think?
believe they're yearly.
How much do you think those are gonna cost?
Oh, they're gonna cost a lot considering it's a
Yeah.
lot of technology in this little thing.
I know.
So
It's gonna be like $10,000, $20,000.
yeah, so you know, I mean, obviously the more you know, wealthy people are gonna have this shit first, and kind of pawn it off on
It's
us as we kind of see it happen.
The trickle down effect.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. And I kind of saw that that's kind of like what we already are experiencing with the Oculus. The Oculus has already kind of got its following of people that are actually wealthy enough to afford it and to play it and to be in, you know, enjoy it and whatever. Um, so we already have that trickling down effect happening towards like the S7. The S7 is kind of a what do you call that? Less advanced version of the Oculus because you can't spatially recognize, and your movements are based on your head, like where you move and then you stop, and then a little thing goes around, and then you go that way. You pick up something, you look at it, you grab it, you lift it up. There's no buttons to push or whatever, unless on your Oculus or on your eye thing or whatever, because the S7 is like a phone that you put in front of your eyes like this, and then it's got the Oculus set up where it goes around your head.
Yeah.
And you set the phone inside of it. So that's going to be trip. I mean, I think that's just awesome in general, and that'll lead towards bringing virtual reality as we know it now into the mainstream. Whereas right now it's kind of underground and slowly coming through the transhumanism world. Anything else? Yeah.
No, there's always more stuff. I mean, I was talking about virtual reality possibly showing us different dimensions of reality.
I think that that's the way we can experience another dimension. And who's to say that's not actually experiencing another dimension is when you actually create it through computer programming.
Theoretically, to have a different dimension, it would also have to share similar qualities of our universe.
Right, like a simulation.
It would have to be like
No Man's Sky would be exactly what you're talking about, because that literally has everything that we have in our universe. It just changes it molecularly. Yeah. To make it like alien.
That would have to be a very advanced computer because you have to calculate million, like infinite upon infinite possibilities upon each other. And so, what sort of computer does that, right?
An
What sort?
artificial reality. I mean,
But
an artificial intelligence, a
yeah,
quantum computer.
well, we see that it does that, right? It,
What? No Man's Sky?
what I just said. Remember?
The universe. You're talking about the universe.
Yeah, I am talking.
Yeah, the actual universe, not the computerized universe.
Yeah, it seems to have this ability or quality of calculating multitudes of possibilities upon them upon each other infinitum, like to the infinite. And so a computer would have to be incredibly advanced to create something like that, because you actually have to program those qualities into it.
Unless it learns, and
Unless
then
it
it, and then
advances.
and then it, yeah, and then it like uses its programming to program itself.
And then it advances further to the point where we could totally fool ourselves that we were in or locked into a virtual reality. And there does remain the fact that people will want and have a desire to put themselves into that sort of reality. It could offer us a new venue of communication. It'd be like a way of escaping it into a different modality of exchange of information. We could do it visually, and if it were more advanced, we could do it emotionally. So if we could ever really get down to what it feels like, or what the simulated responses emotion would be, uh, then you would have full immersion. But humans tend to have such a variance of emotions, and we're not machines. Like, we are in one sense, but we're also extremely rebellious machines, and we don't want to be controlled.
That's right.
Anyway,
My phone.
are we still on the air?
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, those possibilities are sort of like what Terence McKenna was saying, how we could project our species into hyperspace in an effort to like save our species. How strange of an idea.
I don't know.
But how much of a possibility is it as well that we would do something?
It's. I think it's a strong possibility considering the direction that they're all headed and the funding that's going that way.
It's a little scary. And being a conscious being, it does make me concerned that that there might be different modes of or methods of control human beings. So as this advances, the more it will be used against us. The more, if we allow ourselves to descend into a paralysis of delusion, that is not the correct path of our evolution, if you ask me.
I agree.
And I guess we could end there.
Yeah. Final thoughts? No? That was
pretty
it?
much was my
Okay. Final thoughts for me, pretty much, yeah, I don't necessarily, know either way. I have my own personal thoughts about myself, and now that I've experienced the Oculus and come back to this reality, I'm just kind of testing things as I go and seeing if there's any other um, things I notice that make me think that it's another possibility that I am in an Oculus. Weird things are like common themes that show up over and over again. That seems to be like making me think that we're in an Oculus, because why do they keep happening? Like,
you think we're in a simulation? You're leaning more toward the
yeah,
it is a simulation.
I consider it high on the possibility list that it's a simulation, but
Okay.
I don't believe it.
I would remain skeptical if I were you as well.
Yeah,
but that's just
exactly.
me.
Well, there's no way to really prove it, but there is little ways you can prove it to yourself. Doing little tests with yourself. It's not like you can prove that to anybody else. It's just yourself. And these little things you can do, these little tests, testing out little situations or looking at certain stuff. Go in the Oculus, see what you could do in there, and then come back into the reality and see if you do the same shit.
Well,
see the difference is, and what you experience in the Oculus versus what you experience in reality, and because I've experienced glitches in reality, and I don't know what that is, but I would, but that makes me think more so that it could be the connection to that. Another thing is we've been in hiatus for a while, so we're back and we're gonna come on every like couple weeks or so, probably on Fridays. Which day are you available? Friday?
Maybe Fridays.
Yeah, for a
Every
couple
other Friday, maybe.
for a couple hours, just to have a discussion about shit, whatever is happening in the world or whatever we're like just thinking about in general. And currently, we were. This is where we were. We were on this discussion through the last couple weeks. We haven't been able to come online, but we were having this discussion about
A couple weeks ago.
yeah, a couple weeks ago, and actually we did it like again and again, but the two times we haven't been able to kind of we were just like realized we were getting deep with the discussion and we wanted to get it
We've
online.
been
So
talking about this the last couple of times we talked together, and we haven't been able to get together very often.
exactly.
So
We decided to come on and throw it out there. So thank you all for listening, and this is Wisecraft signing off.
And Anon 2150. Right, peace out.
Peace.